All right, look, nobody asked for this comparison. Nobody in their right mind is cross-shopping a 10-year-old Buell and an MT-09, but we thought it would be interesting to compare this Buell XB9SX, which we got off of Twisted Road, our preferred way of getting motorcycles, against our giveaway MT-09. Now, this is an unlikely comparison, but Spite, you think this is worth talking about, right?
Yeah, these are both about 900 cc's of naked torque monster. This is the Sportster motor. This is Yamaha's Bananas inline triple. So let's shake them down and see what happens.
Let's have some fun today. Now look, everyone knows what the MT-09 is, 847cc, triple cylinder, crazy wheelie machine. We don't need to hash this thing over anymore, so let's talk about this Buell a little bit more. Spite, move that thing out of here.
All right, away you go.
Come on, let's get it out of there. All right, Spite, there is no doubt this is a weird bike. You, I think, love this thing, do you? I don't know.
I think it's really cool. It's a weird relic, and I'm finding myself understanding that I like strange, stupid motorcycles, and this is one of the strangest bikes out there. It's actually putting down 92 horsepower and 72 foot-pounds of torque.
Pretty good.
From an air-cooled Sportster motor.
Yeah, this thing literally has, I think, the 883 derived engine, right?
Basically, yeah. So this is almost 1,000 cc's, 984-ish. So it's a bit bored out over the 883, which is how they're making more power, and why Harley decided not to put this in a Sportster, we'll never know.
We'll never know.
But it's a really kind of bizarre relic. As we start getting into it, the weirdest thing you notice is where the gas goes in this bike.
Yeah, because you would think it's right here. You're like, oh, gas goes here. It doesn't.
Nope, the gas goes here, into the frame, which is why it has these big pucks on the side so you don't poke a hole in your gas tank if you go down.
Yeah.
And this is actually the Kick Ash translucid colorway, and so you can actually see through it and look at the airbox, which is pretty neat.
See it right through there, that airbox. There's so much to point out on this bike. So it's belt driven like the Sportster, and so you have this little belt tensioner down there holding the thing in place. The swing arm is just crazy too. It's this crazy, beefy, weird looking swing arm.
It is quite a chunky swing arm. I think the biggest one that I've seen other than this is probably on the R1.
Yeah, definitely. And that adds to this bike's a bit heavier weight than the MT-09, right?
Yeah, so this is about 450 pounds wet. They claimed 380 dry.
Yeah.
So we added a little bit more for, you know, just fluids and the fact that it's an American bike made out of depleted uranium. And one of the nuts things about this is under the seat, because it's an air-cooled bike, there's actually a vent fan back here that'll spin up and get air moving away from the back cylinder because it's all wrapped up in all of this stuff, and keeping it cool is kind of a nightmare since it is putting down more power.
Yeah, the other cool thing about this is because Eric Buell actually cared about going fast and performance, we're working with fully adjustable suspension here, which is awesome. You got a monoshock at the rear, not a crazy dual shock setup like the Sportster, fully adjustable rebound and compression at the front, these big Showa front forks, fully adjustable as well. And then for me, the wildest thing about this bike is the front brake setup. You have a single disc, wheel-mounted rotor. It is so odd.
With the caliper inside the disc.
Yeah, it's so bizarre, and you won't see a brake setup like this on basically any other modern sport bike ever. I think only Buell did this.
Yeah,
I think it's a patented design.
It feels very strange.
Yeah.
It has this weird characteristic where it bites a little bit and then it's like, okay, this is normal, and then it bites a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's just so far out and it's so, it puts so much torque on the front wheel that it works pretty well, and it's a 3-pot caliper. Not just a regular 2-pot. So it's a big brake up there.
The only 3-pot I know of is the Busa's brakes as well, so it's got that in common with it.
Yeah, and then another just weird, I'm not sure where this bike came from. Obviously it was from Milwaukee at one point, but it's in kilometers per hour. And when I say in kilometers per hour,
it is in kilometers per hour.
It's just like the dashboard is painted with kilometers per hour, which is weird. I don't know, like maybe it came from Canada or Europe somehow.
Yeah, but it is the strangest bike, and you know, it's got this big air-cooled engine. There's so much weirdness about it. I think there's only one thing left to do is actually get it on the road and see what it's like.
Let's do it.
Alrighty, guys. Swing a leg over the Buell, comparing it against our MT-09. Spite, no one asked for this comparison. This is a weird one today.
No, but it's kind of fun. These are both naked, torquey bikes, and it's really weird to be riding this bike down the road and having it sound and feel like a Sportster, but not even be even remotely close to one at the same time.
Yeah. I'm excited to swing a leg over it. So I have not ridden this bike yet. We rode out here, and I rode on the MT-09 because I wanted to preserve my Buell virginity. It feels just like a Sportster. That is so odd.
And I get on this thing, and I after having ridden nothing but the Hayabusa and the Sportster for the last week, I'm like, oh, is it even on? I can't tell.
Yeah. So very first impression on ergonomics is it's a stumpy, chunky little thing, huh?
It really is tiny. It's really this itty-bitty, muscly thingamajig. But it's not, like, too small, It's not, I don't feel like the size compromises it necessarily in terms of fitment or anything like that, like the Z650, where the Z650 is just too small.
This is actually close to size of the Z650, but the peg placement on the foot is way higher, which is awesome. You got a lot of clearance to get some good lean angle on this thing.
How's the engine feel for you?
It's buttery smooth, actually. Once you get it up in the revs a little bit, it's nice.
Like that's the one thing that surprised me is like, yeah, it's a big aggressive Sportster engine, but it didn't feel like it was bad in the way that the Sportster engine did. Like it vibrates in dumb ways, and it's an unrideable, just claptrap that feels like you're on a drying machine with a dishwasher or a brick in it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel like that at all. This thing's nice and smooth. It's very old school though, not just in the way that the engine is designed, but the way the bike handles too feels like a bike from at least a generation ago. It doesn't have the snappy power of a new V-twin naked bike. It's way more mellow.
Yeah, and it has that smell too, that kind of old school, oil, gas burning smell that modern bikes just don't have anymore.
Yeah. Tell you what though, I would like a gear position indicator. That'd be cool. And a neutral light that works. This one doesn't.
Yeah, that for some reason that bike's neutral light just doesn't work. I'm not sure what's going on, but I will say, having ridden the Buell down this road to get to the spot where we started, going back to back on the MT-09, this thing feels like a bear. Just like I'm on a loaded gun with the throttle.
It's big, it's wide, it's powerful. This thing is way more small and narrow. And to be honest, the ergonomics here are much more sport bike than the MT-09. The pegs are way higher. I'm actually super surprised. The bottom half of my body almost feels like I'm on a real sport bike.
And yet it is not uncomfortable. It's not, like I was cruising down the highway on it and it was just fine.
This is a really enjoyable motorcycle. This is not bad at all.
I like how you said that, basically assuming that it was just going to be a flaming hunk of garbage like
yeah,
the Sportster.
The bar was set super low for this thing. But it is quite funny. The engine it is a Sportster engine, and you can't really escape that. And it's just so strange, Yeah, we're doing 40 kilometers per hour.
Another
Why
weird
is this
quirk
bike
of
in
fuel.
kph? Doesn't make any sense.
Like I read some people's reviews of it online just because I had some time to kill, and one of the guys was like, "It's in kilometers per hour," and I'm not sure why, and it was hard to tell what speed I was going, and the owner should really switch it over. And I was like, "Oh, so the little dashboard, the LCD dash, is just in kilometers like the Husky." And then I get there and I was like,
nope.
"Oh, that's what he meant."
It is a hard-mounted KPH setup.
Man, I can hear it popping behind me. That thing's crazy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying when I was on the M10. I can really hear it even if you're in front of it. But I gotta say, I'm pleasantly surprised by this motorcycle. The turn-in is slower than I thought it would be, but that could be down to these tires. These Pilot Road 4s aren't the most V-shaped, super aggressive tire you could put on this thing. But overall, it settles really nicely in a corner. It's really not that bad. It's actually better mid-corner than the MT-09, to be honest.
Yeah, and the throttle's not nearly as herky-jerky on it.
Yeah, it's much more smooth, but it doesn't deliver anywhere near the kind of performance the MT-09 does.
No, and you know, by comparison, the MT-09 feels really light and super nimble side to side.
Yeah, this is way slower to pitch it in. Oh my god, I can't believe these vibrations at idle. Look at,
Yeah.
you see that? Fuck,
Is it shaking
man.
your eyeballs?
Yeah, that's crazy. I thought something was wrong with it for a sec. I was like, oh, it's breaking.
You're like, no, that's just what it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, admittedly, I was saying this earlier, and I thought that I was going to get on the Buell and it was going to be just weird and dumb and cheap, and it's really not.
This is pretty freaking good.
He played a magic trick when he built that engine. Just the whole thing, it feels better than it has any right to.
Yeah, but I can't help but think this is the wrong engine for this bike.
I agree. I think that, you know, you can squeeze plenty of power out of the Sportster motor, but it's a slow revving, you know, torque first engine that it doesn't want to go fast. It just wants to cruise.
Yeah, I mean, this you cannot escape it. This is just like a cruiser engine, which it gives you such a strange dichotomy of experience, because this engine didn't start in this motorcycle. It started in a Sportster, right? So it's designed for a completely different thing. Whereas the MT-09 started its life with that engine, with that frame, designed and conceived from the beginning to go together, right? So it's a totally different thing.
And honestly, just moving this thing around through the corners, I kind of wish I was on the Buell, to be honest. This thing feels funny.
Dude, the Buell handle's great.
It feels...
Like you pitch it over here, it's so stable.
Like, I can definitely feel this bike wobble and buckle in a corner.
It genuinely feels like something's wrong with it when you start getting it to idle.
Yeah, it really feels all wrong, because it's just it starts shaking so bad.
Like between 1,000 and 2,000 RPM, the whole my jaw is shaking.
I can hear it in your voice.
What a weird bike. It's it is such a bizarre experience. The chassis, the way it handles, everything about it, the way it flicks in, you're like, fun sport bike. Feels a lot like a Ducati Monster from a couple years ago. But the engine is just not there. It's not there, dude.
It tries. He you know, they did the best they could with what Harley Davidson gave them.
Yeah.
Which admittedly is not much. But that sound.
Look how listen, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna rev this engine. I'm gonna rev that one. Look at this, where it's like it feels like a big old school V8 trying to do its thing, you know. Versus this, look how fast this thing revs up, man. There's no comparison.
It revs up and down so quickly.
I think this thing revs up and down faster than that thing revs up. What could have been with the Buells, man?
What could have been?
What could have been? This could have been our Ducati in the United States.
It rides like the Monster.
Yeah.
You know? It feels just like the Monster. When you get on it, you're like, oh, okay, big tank, aggressive stance,
Yeah.
kind of small feeling bike. And, you know, it definitely feels like it's a little too small for a guy my size, but, you know, it's a really fun little naked bike.
Yeah. What do you say we wrap this up and get our final thoughts?
Sounds good to me.
All right, guys, wrapping up our day here with the Buell and the MT-09. Despite, I think for me, the thing I'm taking away from this is like how much progress we've made since like old school naked bikes and how they are nowadays. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like there's been progress, and there's also been like steps back, I think, in this, because this represents to me excess in a bad way, I think. I think it's too much, it's too silly, it's too, like there's no chill with this motorcycle. It's all go all the time, hair on fire, and you can't calm it down. Whereas that, you can ride it and you know, put it on the side of the tire and really go for it. And it kind of feels like you're pushing it a little too hard for what it is, but it also feels like it's completely compliant while it's doing it. You know
I
what
would
mean?
say the Buell is much more forgiving than the MT-09
Yes.
in a way that bikes kind of used to be. You know, I think we've gotten to the point now where everyone's used to having 160 horsepower and having electronics to save you and all this crazy stuff. And some people even see the MT-09 as like a normal bike, but it's really not a normal bike. It feels crazy. And this to me represents more of what motorcycles used to be, that they used to be a little bit more laid back, more chill, something you could really kind of be a little bit more flexible with. And I was
when
really...
a liter bike made like 140 horsepower, for example.
Yeah, I know, seriously. And I think we've kind of lost our way a little bit when it comes to that, and the Buell is kind of refreshing in that way. I can't get away from the fact that it's so anachronistic with its engine and its frame. I'm like, what is going on with this bike? Because you accelerate and you're like, I'm on a Sportster. You flick it in, you're like, I'm on a Ducati Monster. It's so weird. It's so weird.
It's got this weird, the Venn diagram of riders who would like it. The overlap is so small, which is, I guess, kind of the story of Buell, right? Kind of a shame. But it's so cool and fun to ride and unique.
Yeah.
Because it has that cruiser engine in there. And again, yeah, it's a little hopped up, but it feels like a cruiser engine.
Yeah.
It revs like a cruiser engine. It hangs revs like a cruiser engine. You want to take it easy, but then you put it on the side of the tire and you're like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by how high the foot pegs are on this thing and how the overall ergonomics package is actually so much better than what I thought it would be. Really pleasantly surprising bike. I really am trying to think of complaints. I mean, the complaints I have is I just want more performance, right?
Yeah.
I want better components, but it's hard to say, because if you were to put me on this bike, I'd be happy with it. I wouldn't be upset about it from a naked sport bike experience, other than the engine, which could definitely use some help, I think.
Yeah, the fact that it vibrates so bad that it shakes your eyeballs is a little much. It shakes like nobody's business. I think it's the way that the engine is mounted in the frame actually makes it worse than the Sportster.
I think so, yeah. Between 1 and 2,000, this thing just shakes everything on your body.
Yeah,
it's
I
crazy.
feel like it's mounted differently, obviously, because you know the frame is completely different. But it feels fun and raw. It feels like what something like the Super Duke should kind of be like, except not to the nth degree.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because that bike is just bananas.
Yeah.
It's like this on steroids and ketamine.
Yeah.
This is like what a naked sport bike for the street should feel like. You know?
It's flattering in a way too, and it doesn't ever really scare you, even if it has like all that torque and, you know, supposed top end power, which I didn't really feel much of.
That's the thing, is it feels like it doesn't really have that 92, 72 number. It doesn't rev that way. Maybe it does on a dyno, but out in the real world, it just doesn't feel like it's making the power that they quoted.
This thing feels a smidge faster than an SV650.
Yes.
Which a lot of folks might say this comparison makes no sense, and I do agree to an extent. We are just having fun today, but you know, 900cc naked bike, I mean, this thing feels like a rocket ship compared to this thing. This thing, we were talking about it on the way down, you're like, why is it so fast? The MT-09's crazy fast. In a way that maybe the bigger Buells feel, the XB12, right? They make that one, or they used to make it?
I feel like the XB12 would be like this, but maybe having the performance that you want.
Yeah. Maybe.
I feel like that might actually give you the punch that you're looking for.
Or maybe it's like everyone said about the Dyna, and it's just big Sportster. Maybe, who knows?
This is sporty Sportster.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this odd comparison, and if you like what we're doing here, hit the subscribe down below. Join us on YammieNoob.co. This is a giveaway bike. Remember, don't forget that. And this one we got off Twisted Road. We'll catch you on the next one. See you later. Hey there, partner. You done made it to the end of this here Yammie Noob video, but I tell you what, there's another Yammie Noob video right over here waiting for you. Now, I know I'm real gracious like that, and I just do nice things for you, so why don't you take a look at this video, and you let me know what you think.